Howdy! Today we are discussing this horse race test thing. I have some interesting things to say about it. So, I'm not talking about, the lore. I'm not talking about the lore right now. I'm talking about the mechanics of how this works. You see those horses bouncing off those walls? That had to be programmed for them to bounce off those walls, you see. So, I'm just gonna have the Wikipedia page for horse open for a little while I explain what I'm talking about here. What I'm talking about here is I found out about horse race tests, and one of the first things I thought of was, I wonder if I could recreate that. Because, imagine a video game that just lets you make custom horse race tests. Except I would make it about rabbits, because I like rabbits. But yeah, I think that could be a swagful video game. So I thought, what's the mechanics? How could I code this into existence? The graphics are mighty simple, of course, but the coding, how does it work? How is it programmed? And if we go back to the very start right here, you'll see it's pretty simple. Horse goes in a direction. Let's actually go back to the very start. They just launch in a random direction at start. So they're spawned in at the certain positions, and then they move in a random direction until they hit a wall. Whenever they hit a wall, they move in a random direction. Whenever they hit each other, they also move in a random direction. That's pretty simple. You see, Blue got into this corridor, didn't bounce around much. Yellow got stuck there because of the other horses, etc., etc. I don't have a plan going into how I'm explaining this, but there's a thing here. You see, of course, everyone knows that Jovial Merriment keeps winning. And that's the thing. I know it's likely just, if I had to guess, it's probably just re-simulated until there's an interesting outcome. But I was wondering, could you make it so that a horse could have a consistently higher rate of winning or a consistently higher rate of losing without throwing out simulations that didn't match what you wanted? And that comes down to modifying what angles a horse could bounce off of. You'd have to figure out a formula of, okay, this will get you to a more wide open area. This will get you towards those little carrot things right there. That's pretty interesting, but that's hard to pull off. It would take a lot of trial and error and a pretty complex mechanism to get something that would consistently result in better results. At least terribly consistently. Another thing you could do is just, with each horse, you give each horse a unique mechanism of how it determines which angle to bounce towards. Let's say this one, I don't remember, Downtown Skybox. Let's say Downtown Skybox will always aim towards a wide open space. Or, for example, you could, Pink maybe always goes for the longest distance it can go, not necessarily in its benefit all the time, but the longest distance it can go. And someone like Yellow aims for other horses. Just a bunch of stuff like that. That could result in interesting horse personalities. They each have their own tactics that they bring to this wondrous race. But yeah, another thing I was thinking about was, I wonder if you could program in a mechanic to have the horses like, switch their tactics. Like, if you see that, for example, Jovial Merriment is, like, over here, and you want Jovial Merriment to win, you could say, like, okay, Red, you aim for Jovial Merriment. It would take a lot of buttons or some, like, side panel to control it all, but you could theoretically do that if you wanted to. Just real quick to go through the other mechanics. There's the timer, the name, of course. The stage depends on what you're making it in. You'd have to figure out the very specific hitboxes, the hitbox shapes for the horses, and the stage. Like, this stage is really simple, so I'm gonna skip past it, but give the unique horses, just make it so that it matches their shape perfectly, and the shape of the stage matches its hitbox perfectly. Depends on the program, but that could be easy. It just comes down to program knowledge. The carrots are easy, just if horse touches carrots, bring to that horse's windscreen. Like, save the horse that touched the carrots as a variable, and then load a windscreen with variable of specific horse to bring up the specific windscreen. Pretty simple on that. Another thing, it doesn't show it here, but there's some different approaches to the scores that are shown. That would just be, you'd have to save the variables somewhere. A win and loss variable for each horse, as well as their name. You could just have a table or something of variables for each horse. It would be pretty simple. Okay, I was editing, and I realized something I somehow totally forgot to mention. But very crucial element, the horses, the directions they go in is not fully random. It excludes a certain range of directions based on what direction collision they ran into, which I guess wouldn't be that hard to do. You just gotta figure out, okay, save the direction of the horse at the time it was colliding with whatever it collided with, and remove, like, every direction from range of, say, 35 degrees, remove 35 degrees in this direction to 35 degrees opposite direction, so that it does not go directly back into the wall, as one possible solution to that problem. But yeah, horse race test may seem very easy to make. However, there's hidden complexities to how horse race tests could be recreated. It's not as simple as it may seem.